Okay, it's 2 p.m., so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming to this panel. Today we're going to be talking about how to please every platform and make video distribution work. And so the way this panel is kind of going to be set up is that we are each going to go through a project on a platform that we're excited about in our respective organizations, introduce ourselves, talk about that project, and then there's no moderator for this panel, so I'm going to kind of act as the de facto moderator. I'm going to be asking my fellow panelists some questions. We're going to have a conversation up here, and then we're going to invite you into the conversation at the end and have about 20 minutes of Q&A. So yeah, I'm here with Ashley from CNN and Andrew from NBC, and I think we're going to kick it off with you, Ashley, if you want to introduce yourself and sort of talk about what you do.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I am Ashley Codiani, and I am the head of social and emerging for CNN Worldwide. And I'm just going to quickly talk with you about what our distribution looks like, and then give you an example of one of our off-platform video offerings that we've recently launched, and talk about what that is and what it looks like in the audience that we're trying to get with that new project. And then we'll have a little bit of a discussion and you can ask questions. So I'll kick off here. So obviously this is CNN right here, and you're going to see a big bubble chart soon, and they've started calling me the bubble queen, but it's okay. And so CNN, this is our core, right? At the bottom there, that's our journalism, and that's what we do best. And then we're starting to distribute that off to desktop, mobile, Apple, CNN Go, and then there's our video platforms. And this is sort of where my world starts to evolve here. You see Facebook Watch in there, you see YouTube, and then there's Roku, Apple, Android, etc. And then you really get into my world. And so this is where, if you're going to take a photo, I would wait until the slides are final, until you get all of the bubbles, right? Once you get all the bubbles, it's a really good visual. So, so my world kind of is really in this arc right here, which is all of social and messaging. And so this is our messaging bot strategy. This is our social distribution strategy. And this is also our video strategy and video distribution strategy among these platforms. And then we get to emerging and off-platform. And so this is, Apple News, Google AMP, Apple Watch, Samsung, et cetera, and I wonder if the bubbles end there. Give it one more click. Oh, let's go back so people can get the picture. Oh, we're going to see them again. There we go. All right. Oh, yeah. The bubbles are popular, but what it does show, that's how big and distributed our brand is. So it's a very good representation. And we can talk about this a little bit more as we get into questions, where you should be and why. So before Nadine hits play, I just want to talk about a show that we launched on Facebook Watch. It's a live vertical show. It's called Anderson Cooper Full Circle. I don't know if folks are familiar with the Facebook Watch environment, but that is the new area for video on demand within the Facebook ecosystem that is aligned with your main pages. This show is unique in that, one, it's within Watch, but two, that it's built fully vertical and vertical for mobile on purpose, and it's fully interactive. So we'll just play a little snippet for you. Oh, if there was audio. Oh, no. Do we have audio?
We're supposed to have audio.
We can play it again, if it works. I mean, it's kind of cool without the audio still, too. No.
No audio?
That's okay. Hold on. We're only taking this brief moment because I know Andrew probably has a video sizzle, too.
You're on me.
I think we all do.
Oh, you do as well? It wouldn't be a presentation if there wasn't a technical malfunction, right? All right, let's see if this works here.
One more time.
We'll get a thumbs up when we're ready.
Hey, I'm Anderson Cooper. Welcome to Full Circle, CNN's live nightly newscast here on Facebook. Let's get started. Hey, I'm Anderson Cooper. Welcome to our live nightly newscast here on the new Facebook Watch page. First things first, the top trending story right now. This is a show created for you and by you. The 5 things you want to know, the top 5 stories that you voted for today, and everything we can tell you about. Time now for the 180, your chance to ask questions and make comments, news and newsmakers. For tonight's Full Circle interview, I'm joined by my friend Andy Cohen. Hey, Andy, how's it going?
Anderson, what's up?
Everything happening in your world, this is where it all comes full circle. Weeknight, 6:25 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Facebook.
So it is better with audio. So that's our new show that we do daily within that environment, and we'll just quickly. So the thing about this show, other than it being fully vertical for that mobile experience, is we had to learn a lot and build a lot to accomplish this. And so we did have to create a newsroom set specifically designed for the mobile distribution and mobile output. We did have to build a new control room setting for that vertical output. And then the other thing about this show is that it is fully interactive. And so the audience during the day chooses, is a part of the conversation in the stories that we cover. We also do live polling within that show. We also incorporate audience comments and audience questions within the interviews that Anderson is conducting. And so what we call it Full Circle for the whole reason that it really is intended to be a full circle experience with the audience and fully interactive. And it's been a really great learning experience. It's been a really great challenge and new audience growth opportunity. And so, you know, at 6:25, you can tune in on Facebook Watch and hopefully follow that page if you would. And I'll leave it there, but I look forward to your questions and having the conversation later.
Okay, I'll talk about the Washington Post next. So my name's Nadina Jaka. I'm the senior producer for video platforms at the Post. So I'm overseeing our off-platform or off-site content mix and distribution. That's me in the picture. Yeah, and so the Post this year has really kind of, you know, found itself to the point where video is sort of a key part of how we tell stories. We had a huge expansion in 2017. We doubled our video department. We're now at 70 people. And so my role was one of those new roles. And so kind of the first part of what I do is try to think about how to tell the journalism that the Washington Post is really known for, kind of breaking stories, are exclusive, figuring out how to disseminate that off-platform where people might come across it that might not be visiting thewashingtonpost.com. So this is an example of an exclusive we had. I'm sure many of you have heard it. It's this kind of strange phone call between Bob Woodward and President Trump regarding the publication of Bob Woodward's new book, and we had this exclusive recording of the audio between them. And so it lived on the site with a transcript, sort of annotated with Medium, but then we also put it on Apple News, where it played left of home, and then also on YouTube as well, where it did get a lot of traction and where, you know, people came across it that weren't necessarily seeing it on the site. And then they had the opportunity to kind of read more because, you know, we linked back to the site and included all sort of the relevant context for that. So that's kind of like the first part of my job. And then also we're thinking about meeting people where they're at and creating video content specifically for certain platforms. And I want to show you an example of one of these shows, which is Anna's Science Magic Show Hooray. So we know that a lot of young people are on YouTube. We know that the YouTube Kids app has 15 million weekly active users. We also kind of know that there is like a little bit there's a space for people who are creating content for tweens. I think YouTube Kids has a lot of stuff for kids 9 and under, but sort of 9 to 12, 9 to 13 range, you know, we sort of knew that they didn't really have that much content. So this is where this show comes in, and we launched it in May, and I just kind of wanted to play the trailer for you guys.
Hi, I'm Anna. I work in a magical office in the basement of the Washington Post. In each of my videos, I answer a science question from you, and I bring the answers to life in any variety of whimsical ways. So send me your questions and join me for Anna's Science Magic Show. Hooray!
Yeah. So I mean, so like, it's definitely a chance for us to sort of bring kind of like the curiosity the Washington Post is known for, along with some playfulness, and try to sort of, cultivate a new audience that might not necessarily be visiting thewashingtonpost.com because they're under the age of 13. And so this is. This lives on YouTube. It's its own YouTube channel. We sort of built it out from the flagship Washington Post YouTube channel just because it is different than a lot of the other series that we're making, and we also wanted to be sensitive about the fact that it's for kids, and so we didn't want someone to be watching in a science magic show, and then the next video that autoplays is a Washington Post news video that's about a sensitive topic. It's one episode a week, and it's heavily based on sort of audience interaction. So Anna's in the comments, she's asking you guys what you want to know, and then every week she's answering that question. I mean, we know that YouTube is kind of a place for like appointment viewing, so the show comes out on the same day every week. So yeah, and with that, I think we'll pass over to Andrew.
Hello, how's it going? I'm Andrew Springer from NBC News, where I oversee Stay Tuned. I also occasionally fill in for Al Roker on the Today Show. Just kidding, I don't do that. And I'm glad I'm not on a hurricane right now. So prior to this, I oversaw, I'm from West Virginia, don't judge me. I oversaw social media for NBC News, and before that it was at ABC, but I'm going to share a couple things with you that we learned creating Stay Tuned, which we launched originally on Snapchat as the first news show on Snapchat. And then we had a little bit of competition, and now we're the only news show on Snapchat. Just kidding.
Andrew and I are friends in real life.
Up until now, of course. So this was the challenge that we had when we created Stay Tuned. We wanted to create something entirely new, a news briefing designed specifically for the Snapchat audience. There are probably Snapchat users in here, but you guys aren't our core audience. And I'll talk about more on that in a minute. We want to make it available all day long with breaking news updates, do it all in vertical, kind of like Ashley was doing, and we launched it in 3 months. I don't know if you've ever worked with a partner who said, hey, somebody else is working on this too, so do you want to be first? Do you want to be first? So, sorry, she's just... Okay, yeah, apparently so. So go to the next slide here. I don't know what's next. Oh, this is what we came out with. Who has seen Stay Tuned? Does anybody watch Stay Tuned on a regular basis? All right. Okay, so if you haven't seen Stay Tuned, this is what we do here.
I'm Savannah Sellers. I've got the details.
I'm Gotti Schwartz. We're going to tell you what's changed. Take a look at the geography. This is the border of North Korea, and 35 miles away is Seoul, South Korea.
Remember when we told you about the West Virginia teacher strike? Well, it hasn't gone away, and it's gotten even crazier.
This fight is going down in history.
You guys thinking for the next Olympics?
Can't wait. We'll be ready.
This is Hurricane Irma.
We lived here knowing this could happen.
This will be the new way to unlock your phone.
I guess you could say their chemistry is organic. All right, I'm done.
So what is single payer? The government pays doctors and hospitals so the patient doesn't have to. Why is news gotta be so complicated?
We're going to stay here to keep you updated, so stay tuned.
You know you want to.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
So that's Stay Tuned. Gotti is actually back at the hurricane right now, and hopefully he doesn't get blown away. Since we launched last July 19th, we've done over 750 episodes, each about 2 minutes long. We reached 35 million viewers, unique viewers a month on Snapchat, which is crazy. 60% of those are under the age of 25, and about half of those are under the age of 18. And then we really created the first news brand for Gen Z. And if you're not familiar with the term Gen Z yet, you will, because I'm sure we'll all be writing think pieces about how Gen Z is destroying everything. now that we millennials have moved on and started writing about other generations. The Pew Research Center says they're anybody born after 1997. Different people calculate at different ages, but I kind of go with Pew. But so yeah, so that's stay tuned. I think that's it. That's all I got.
Great. I do, before I ask my fellow panelists some questions, I kind of want to get a sense of who's in the room. How many of you guys are video producers, meaning you produce, shoot, and edit video? Cool. And who here maybe manages a team of video producers? Okay, cool. Just so we know who we're talking to.
Oh, yeah, okay, so I do have another slide, apparently. Yeah, so what we learned was it's just a hybrid of TV and digital. Our audience has to be drawn in. They will not click on politics. Our audience just does not care about daily political updates. For example, we led once with John McCain's brain tumor when that was announced last summer. Nobody watched it. I'm just going to say this. We did our episode on Saturday, led with Cardi B and Nicki Minaj, and it was our second most watched episode ever. And we want to talk the way people talk and dress the way people dress. You know, one of our competitors on their nightly news program starts off by saying, oh, leading off tonight, who in the world talks like that? Nobody talks like that. Why do news anchors talk differently than the way we do? And then we also want to make it beautiful, and I had to put that because my design lead made me put that in there.
But it does look beautiful.
Thank you.
Cool. So this question is for both of you guys, although maybe we can start with Ashley. It kind of seems like there's a million places to put video. So what are you looking for in an emerging platform? How do you decide what to invest in and where to put your time and energy into?
Yeah, I can answer that first. How many folks in the room are working for local publishers or local media? Okay. Yes.
Bless you, by the way.
Yeah, no. So this is good because a lot of times you really have to think about resources and where to put your energy. And quite simply, I think the best place to put your energy is where the biggest audience is. And I think that to test that, you run, little, not pilots, because those also take a lot of resources, but I would say I would look at the traffic sources that are coming through already very naturally for where you work in local or your publisher in general. And then say, okay, well, if the bulk of my audience is in this one place, if we fed them video in that place, is that also going to succeed? And I think when you have all of these options and you don't have a lot of resources, that's one way to look at it. And then to think about, based on that, what your distribution and frequency strategy is based on that, and where really ultimately are you getting the most bang for your buck, right? So anytime that we, I'm fortunate to have a larger team, but I would say for anyone, you want to really look at three things. It's your reach. How many people are you going to reach? How many people is your brand going to have exposure to? And is that a new audience or not? That's another thing to consider. Two is your relevance. Within that platform, how relevant are you going to be? And are you communicating to an audience that you're going to appeal to and relate to? And then three is revenue. How much money can you make on that platform and in what way? So reach, relevance, and revenue are kind of the three check marks that I go through with my team. And we really think about that before moving forward. But I think if you are working for a smaller publication or one that doesn't have a large video unit, focus on where your biggest audience is going to be and do it well and learn from that and then iterate on that, because ultimately you don't have to be everywhere all the time. Focus on where your biggest bet's going to be.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that you talked about publishers or outlets who are not as well resourced as NBC or CNN or the Washington Post. And Andrew, I would love to hear any advice you might have for people who work at places where maybe they're the only video person, or they're trying to start a video team, or the video team is small, and sort of building a strategy that fits that size or those resources.
I've thought about this since we talked that you said you were going to ask me this question. I don't mean to say it was a plant, but, take your time to think about it. I think it's about knowing your audience and what's going to respond to that audience. I think that I'm astonished when I meet people from the entertainment side of NBC, the folks, the ad wizards behind This Is Us and what have you. And they've come up with personas of like the person that they're trying to reach. They know like they have 6 people that they think are going to watch NBC, and all their programming sort of fits into those buckets, right? Like the young college-age kid who's going to watch Sunday Night Football is not the same as the mom who's watching the Today Show or watching This Is Us. I don't think we do that in news. I don't think we do that enough. I don't think we think about, well, what is the audience actually interested in that I'm going to respond to? I think that a lot of times, especially, and I say this with all due respect, I grew up in a local newsroom in West Virginia. My mom was a newspaper reporter there. We have this thing of like, this is what we're interested in, so everybody is interested in it. Well, what really is your audience going to be interested in? And I would focus on that. Do the stuff, do the journalism that you have to do too, but also, you know, especially at local newspapers, you've seen the cutbacks in like lifestyles and stuff, but a lot of people are interested in that. So I would, again, think about really what your audience wants to see.
And I would just want to piggyback, and sorry, on the persona thing. If you haven't done this exercise, it's actually really interesting. We've done it where I get a good group of my team into a room, and we actually draw out and visualize and name the person or the 3 people that we think that we're communicating to. And it's truly amazing how that single practice, you know, there's benefits and there's challenges to doing this, because you don't want to tunnel vision into a single persona by any means. But what it does help with is your voice. And if you're ever looking to change or modify the voice of your brand or how you communicate, that little trick has been pretty successful for some of the exercises that we've done.
Can I just put on that one more time? Just one thing. When I ran social media at ABC, we built ABC News social media following by asking the one question, why would somebody follow this? Yeah. Why would somebody follow ABC on Twitter? And we came up with a strategy of breaking news, where we're just like, we're just going to do breaking news all the time. It doesn't matter how small or how big, we're going to tweet it. We're going to be all over it. And that's how we built that. Like, just ask yourself the question, why would somebody follow this? Why would somebody like my page? What are they going to get from it?
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I think it's really important to like do a little digging around the platforms that you want to be on. You know, I think so often we are sort of like, oh, we know that there's a lot of young people here, and so, you know, we need to come up with a strategy. But I don't know that a lot of people are really kind of spending ample time on the platforms, and I think it's really important to sort of do your research beforehand. You know, Andrew, I was kind of thinking about this when you were talking about like how you gear your journalism towards younger people. You lead with the Cardi B, Nicki Minaj beef, you know, like, and so I'm kind of curious. I think we all work at sort of legacy publications or publications that, or outlets where people kind of have a strong, you know, idea of what they are in their minds. And how do you adapt your voice to different platforms that, you know, maybe that kind of broadcast style doesn't work, or that sort of traditional like print style reporting doesn't work? Like how are you doing that?
I think what NBC did, and this wasn't my call, I think we just sort of stumbled into it, but we created a whole new brand that it would be really weird for Lester Holt to lead the nightly news with Cardi B and Nicki Minaj, right? But not so weird to see Savannah Sellers, who is 26 years old, talk about it. So we separated that away from what we were doing. And I would encourage you to play around with that as well. I mean, Channel 4 in New York, WNBC, has created their own version of Stay Tuned that they do on Instagram stories. They've tried to do the same thing, just like move it away from the local newscast, the 5 o'clock news.
And I would just add the other thing about that too is, you know, Stay Tuned and even Full Circle and the Science Show are obviously more highly produced content, right? The one thing that I think has been very valuable that we've learned is your reporters and your reporters using these platforms. We have some incredible young producers who have huge followings on some of these platforms. And so it doesn't even necessarily need to be your flagship brand to tell a story that relates to a younger audience. It can, in many ways, be the people that you're working with day to day who are cultivating their own niche audiences.
That's great. So I kind of want to get into this without getting too political, but I know that we all sort of work for, legacy publications. In your guys' case, this means broadcast. In my case, it's print. Sometimes it can be kind of tricky to get buy-in from people to be on these different platforms, especially when the monetization piece isn't quite there, but maybe the audience piece is there. And so, I'm wondering, Ashley, how you kind of navigate that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I have to be honest, and I've been very fortunate with this, is that I do have a lot of buy-in from the top of my organization with the value of distribution in general. I think now more than ever, however, publishers and platforms are working together on the monetization part of that, which I think has been an evolution over time. It could be better, of course, always, but that certainly does, that has been a little bit of a shift and a change, which is good on the publisher side. But yeah, I think, if that is something that folks are having challenges with, one thing that has really helped in the CNN environment is showing the success of some of these endeavors and showing the success of what it's like to have a reporter. We have Will Ripley, who travels to North Korea quite frequently, and the value of having him do an Instagram story and the several million people that might see that story that might not ever see it on TV. And I think from a brand perspective and just from a storytelling and journalism perspective, that's really valuable, because that is a much younger audience that just otherwise would never have access to our storytelling. And I would also say that internal PR, it's that feedback loop. So if you do put a native video on Facebook and it does get 3 million views, or Twitter, for example, with Twitter video, think about the success of those, and then the feedback loop on the success, the audience that it reached, what it gained for your brand, and then think about the monetization component on the end of that too, and what that can set precedent for. And I think anytime you over-communicate that, the more luck you might have.
What about you, Nadine, in terms of the print side? Like, how do you get a print reporter to do a Facebook Live that, doesn't suck?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's a tall order anyways, but like...
Yeah, I mean, I need to give a lot of credit to the people who work at the Washington Post. I think a lot of people might assume it might be like 1 degree harder to get a print reporter to be on camera, but in reality, a lot of them are, they're going on CNN, they're going on NBC, they're sort of called in as the experts. And so the kind of selling point, I think, for us and for our live shows on YouTube and on Twitch, for example, is that we have those people right there in the building. And, I think that kind of shows with sort of the audience. And I think too, they see the success, they see the reach, and telegraphing that to them is is really important. I want to ask you guys this, and sometimes we go all in on a platform, and it doesn't really pay off. And so how do you know when it's time to go?
I'll just say that I think it's usually pretty apparent.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you use these platforms in and day out, you get a sense that, hey, something's not working here. I worked for Mashable, and we did...
Oh, me too.
Yeah, there you are. Yeah. And we did all these Facebook Lives, and they were just, my God, terrible. They were just terrible. And I thought to myself, who watches this? Who would say? I literally did a Facebook Watch show called Things We Hate. And it was just me and another reporter talking about things that we hated. And it literally just, the only people watching it were the people in the newsroom making fun of us. And they were commenting and making fun of us. And I just got the sense of watching all these terrible Facebook Lives, and that's nothing against Facebook or nothing against the people who did it. Just live is really, really hard to do. Ask the people who do CNN and MSNBC all day long. That it just didn't work. So I think it's pretty self-apparent. Anybody with a brain in their head can sort of see these things that they're not working. Would you say that? I mean, I know you could.
Yeah, I'll say that. I would say here's a really good, it's basic cost benefit analysis, right? How much are you putting into something and what are you getting back from it?
That's a much smarter answer than what
Oh, no, it's just a more boring answer, really. And I think that when you are thinking about resources, I mean, that's really the question, right? How many hours a day is this taking somebody to do, and what are you really getting out of it? Now, granted, you need a test period, though, because nothing's successful right away. Yes. And you really need that 6 to 8 months, and maybe sometimes a year to really measure quality success. But once you really get to that year mark, if something is not paying off, I mean, that's really when you evaluate the investment of the time and the resources that you put in. I mean, have you had any experience with this?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sort of what you were saying about those kind of 3 R's, reach, relevance, and revenue, I think, we're also sort of thinking about that as sort of like, okay, if there's this Venn diagram between like, there's audience and then there's revenue potential, and the platforms that we should be on, ideally, is kind of where those intersect, right? Where there's huge audience potential and it's a brand building opportunity, but where we can also make money and not feel like we're putting our stuff out for free. And so I think for us, a kind of signifier of maybe we should invest in other platforms is this cost benefit thing where, are we putting in so much work but not making money? Has the platform stopped paying us? Has something shifted in the algorithm and we're not sort of being prioritized? I think you really can't be afraid to pivot and to try new things. And something that we tried at the Post, Phoebe Connolly, who's the deputy director of video, thought we should be on Twitch because that was sort of like a huge audience opportunity. We know that millions of people watch Twitch, and there also is like a revenue potential there. And so we decided to sort of go all in and try, weekly live shows and streaming every day. And, I think there's definitely going to be sort of like a test period, and there's going to be a time where it's sort of like, okay, is this worth it? Do we keep investing these resources? Because it is a lot of resources to sort of start out on a platform.
Wait, can I say something controversial? And I think it's the perfect example of what you're talking about. And half the room is going to hate me for saying this. I get so bonkers when I think of all the time and resources people put into VR video. Like, these news organizations are making these VR videos that nobody's watching. And I get that there are people that should experiment and create, and NBC does some experimentation, and the New York Times does some really innovative stuff. ABC has done some really cool stuff with VR video, Frontline. But it's just like, these people are so interested in VR video, and I have never seen somebody wearing an Oculus headset. I mean, outside of like the Facebook booth, which is cool and great. I'm not putting down Facebook again, but it's just, I don't get it. Until there's like a game or something like the Call of Duty for VR that makes every kid have a VR headset, I don't know why we're spending all this time and resources on VR. Sorry. Okay, rant over.
That was good.
Yeah. I know we've got some VR producers in the room, probably.
Okay, is there alcohol? No. Okay. All right, I'm there.
So both of you guys were sort of talking about the importance of vertical video, and I kind of feel like people were talking about square video a couple years ago, and now it's vertical, and so I want to get your guys' thoughts on, is like high quality vertical video here to stay, and how much should we be focusing on that, quite frankly?
So I don't know if I'm like the biggest optimist ever, but I've always been a dabbler in new video formats ever since I got into video from very early on. And I have had a thing with, that sounds funny, but I've really loved vertical video from, for the past even like 2 years. I've always try to find ways to produce more vertical video, figure out how to do it. Can we do it on our own platforms? Why that storytelling makes sense to me. So yes, I think vertical video is here to stay. I think it's still very early. I would say consumption habits and patterns are still evolving, and that vertical video is, you know, still a year or two down the road, maybe less. But we're certainly experimenting with it. Do I think that that means everybody should leave the room and suddenly go back to their product teams and say, oh my God, we need to build vertical video for our mobile app and our website? No, I mean, I don't think we're there yet. And I don't know if we'll ever be there. But I certainly think that young people, you know, my brother is very young, early 20s, and it's all vertical video and it's all mobile video and consumption. And so I'm a fan. I want to experiment with it more. I like it. I want to be doing more of it.
Yeah, I don't think vertical video is going away. I just think that this phone is going to fit in your hand. I think that, like, and even the next thing, and I'm no futurist, but I did read Michio Kaku's book. You know, eventually we're just going to have walls that are all screens. And so I think that as journalists, we have to be thinking about what's next, I am not a dabbler in future video things, whatever you said, no offense. But you know, eventually we're just going to have walls that are screens. Like, how do we tell our stories on that? How do we put our journalism there? Hey, look, the platforms may change, but I don't think a phone is going to go away anytime soon in the next 5 to 10 years, just in terms when you think of technology and stuff.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like you can do vertical video in kind of a lo-fi way. Like, I think I heard once that like 80% of Instagram stories are shot selfie style. So yeah, I just think that's an interesting sort of thought experiment. I think we're nearing the time where we want to open it up to questions, but I kind of want to ask you guys, I mean, I know there might be a lot of young people in the room, students, people who are earlier on in their careers, and I'm kind of curious to hear from you guys, like, if you have one piece of career advice, what would it be?
Oh, I thought you were asking the audience a question. I don't know why. Okay, career advice. Always be willing to adapt and experiment, right? So nothing's ever going to be wrong. Just, you know, take a lot of risks and challenge. Doesn't take a lot of risks, okay? Like, take like one risk and see what happens with it. I took a risk joining a social and mobile startup called Now This. I'm sure you guys follow them all on Facebook. And I had spent 5 years at NBC News, and I was on the TV side, and I decided, not abruptly, but I'd thought about it for a while, that I needed to go fully social and fully mobile and fully digital. And I was hired at Now This as like a producer 10, and it's been incredible to watch that kind of grow and evolve over time. And that was the best professional experience I've had that let me pivot into an entirely new career trajectory.
My one piece of advice, and I give this all the time, is just, and it's incredibly lo-fi, but just read books. I don't know how many interns that we have that come through, or desk assistants, or pages who don't read books. All that they do is they just go through the New York Times, or they go out there on Reddit or on Twitter. That's not reading. Read a book. Pick up a book and read it. That's my advice. Like, I'm very excited because during this trip, I'm going to go over to the LBJ Presidential Library because I've been reading Robert Caro's biography of LBJ. I've learned so much about government and power and understanding other people through books that I wouldn't have gotten just by reading a Mashable article. So please help spread the word of the old-fashioned book can make you a better person and a better thinker and hopefully a better writer.
I love that.
I agree with that.
Um,
What about you? What's your career advice?
So my career advice is something that somebody else told me, so I don't actually know if it's mine. It's not mine. Someone told this to me. She's now the head of video at Apple News. But when I was a fellow, I was kind of I was a fellow at the Atlantic. I was young. I didn't really know what I was going to do next. I was kind of freaking out about it. And we were on the phone, and she said, you know, whatever job you think you're going to have in 5 years, you're not. And so I felt it was kind of freeing, and she has ended up being right, because this job I have now didn't exist, you know, a year and a half ago. Cool. I think we'll use the last 20 minutes of this session to answer anyone's questions. So Yeah, I think feel free to just come up to the mic.
Hi, thank you. I'm from NHK Japan. We're a public broadcaster, and we're very centered on TV still. I want to ask a question. When we do shooting for documentaries and programs, we do it for TV. If we do it for TV and we have the camera for TV and we come back, is it possible for us to put it on online or digital content, which would be, which would not be TV-ish, or is it something that we can do from the editing, what do you call it?
Process,
Process.
Yeah.
Rather than starting from shooting for online.
Right, sort of like digitally native versus adapting something that was filmed for broadcast.
I can take, I mean, I've had to do this a lot. So one of the things is that's sort of the bigger challenge is the culture shift from acknowledging that when you are out and shooting or doing a story, that it's very likely in a place that as large as CNN that content is going to be distributed across 17 trillion different platforms. And so the quick answer to your question is yes. You can re-edit video shot for television to be square or vertical. However, vertical's a little bit trickier because of the dimensions. One of the things the cultural shift is shooting in a way where it's wide enough where you can actually re-edit it for TV and for social and for digital. Typically, you know, it's shot 16:9 and it's framed for 16:9 on the TV side, and it's just pulling out a little wider and making sure that whomever is shooting or that you're working with is actually shooting it in a way that can be cropped for 1080 by 1080 or vertical, which is, it's like a communication loop. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. We shoot most of our stuff, I think, in 4K. I'm not sure, but I think so. And that's also really easy to kind of push in and edit and still maintain the quality. It's doable. It's just, you know, you certainly don't want it to be a subject's head to be too close or their head cut off, or so a lot of it is a feedback loop with the folks that are out in the field shooting.
Yeah, how about when you edit? You know, like the speed of the edit and cut. Like
you can templatize that, or it doesn't take terribly long to resize if you're just redoing a TV package.
But it's different for TV audience and online audience. I mean, what would, like, for example, if one cut would be like 20-second long cut for TV, online it would be like, I don't know, 15, 16. Is that different, or do you do it?
I'm finding that longer is better on certain platforms. The length depends on where you're distributing it.
Okay, so if it's, so you have to find what's best for Instagram, what's best for Facebook.
Yes, but you could, in theory, find a little clip from a video from a package that is 30 seconds long, and it's like a vignette or an interview or something that speaks to the whole story that you could then clip out and put on Instagram, for example.
Yeah, and I think the important thing, you know, sometimes on certain platforms that maybe are like audio agnostic or autoplay, you know, there's sort of less of a chance to take your audience for granted, which sometimes, you know, TV, you sort of have the luxury of it. People are sitting down, you know, they're in their living rooms. And so starting out with the most compelling soundbite or something really visual, you know, you might have to kind of restructure your broadcast package in a way where people won't sort of leave it in the first 5 seconds.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Hey guys, thanks so much. I got in a little late, so I'm sorry if you already talked about this, but my name is Mariana, I work for the BBC, and I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on what you think in terms of teaching people who've been in the field a long time, are broadcast reporters, and want to get onto these emerging platforms. What do you think is better? Bringing their broadcast expertise and filming them in a broadcast style, or teaching them to hold the phone and do sort of selfie style, like you're talking about, is so common on a lot of these platforms. Like which works better? And then my second question is, should we, as the BBC, CNN, Washington Post, be using emojis?
The second one. No, the BBC, you should not use emojis, okay? You should not do Cardi B. You should not do Nicki Minaj. Stick to the world at one. I mean, that being said, I do, I be true to yourself. You would know that answer better. If I were running social for the BBC, I wouldn't. I don't think it's weird for NBC News to tweet an emoji. I don't know if we do or not, but I think that would be weird.
We're just as cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
No, you're great. You're amazing. I love the NewsHour, but it would be weird if Judy Woodruff is tweeting out hearts and monkey faces.
Fair. All right.
I think you don't have to. Something that I've learned is don't be anything that you're not. So don't try and be something that you're not. We use like checkmark emojis as like a utility on Twitter to like make something more visual, but we're not going to use like blessed hands or anything.
And how, I do want to address a part of your question about what the best way is to sort of train these broadcast reporters and who want to be on emerging platform.
I just say that, I think it depends on the platform. I think that if you're doing Instagram stories, if you roll in that a control room and try to put that on an Instagram story, it's going to be weird. But if you have your reporter who's out there, who's in the field doing a selfie, then do it selfie style. We don't do selfie style on Stay Tuned because we want to be a really premium brand, a really high quality broadcast. And much to Gadi's chagrin, I will not let him do a selfie shot when he's out in the field. Nope, you got to have a cameraman. We are Stay Tuned. We are a very high quality broadcast. So I think it depends on where you're going with it.
I totally embrace it. For our correspondents, I think the trick is, we're sort of similar. Our brands are a bit. So I first worked with correspondents who were naturally already doing Instagram stories well. We have a few, Ivan Watson, Will Ripley, Ashley Kelo, who's based in DC, Betsy Klein, who follows the First Lady. And we kind of built on that, and that has been tremendously successful because once you kind of get one correspondent who's having a lot of success, they all start to get a little jealous almost, and they're like, "What? Why is he featured on your Instagram story?" And I'm like, "Well, why don't we do one, and then you'll get featured." So yeah, it's creating an internal camaraderie around it, which can be hard but very doable.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Krista. I work with Reno Public Radio in Nevada. And my question for you, when it comes to Snapchat and daily super fast turnover video formats, what is your strategy for corrections when you're doing a Snapchat series? If there's an issue and you're like, crap, and we need to issue a correction, how do you address that with something like Snapchat, where it's so fast?
We've only had to do a correction once, and I forget what it was. I honestly don't remember what it was, but we had to do it in our next show because standards felt that if we had just updated it in the show and put it at the end of our current show, so we have 2 shows a day at 7 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that the people who originally saw the 7 o'clock show weren't going to see the correction or know that the information was wrong, so we had to put it in the next show that we did that. And let me tell you, the anchor who had to correct that was not very pleased that they had to do it. But so we put it where we want people to know that if we make a mistake, that if you saw the incorrect information, that you see it. So we did it at the end of the show, and we apologize for the mistake. I have no idea what it was. I remember when it happened, but I don't remember what it was. But it wasn't my fault. Let me just say that, just for the record. It was not my fault.
I remember ours, and it's really, it was Snapchat. It was when we had a Snapchat show, and we had, on Groundhog Day, we had said it was going to be winter sooner or something. We'd gotten the thing wrong.
You got it
wrong, we said the wrong thing. So,
and then, ladies and gentlemen,
that was the one time that we had to do a Snapchat, a correction on that type of platform. And so that was we immediately took it down, re-uploaded the snap, and we were very transparent about we got the groundhog wrong, and don't worry, no, I think winter was going to happen further away than we first thought or something. It was a depressing correction because it meant spring wasn't coming. But I think in any correction scenario, though, transparency is essential. Acknowledge the mistake and correct the mistake in the most vocal way, or the most prominent way that you can for the platform.
If I could just do one more, what are some of like the unique challenges to something like Snapchat when it comes to corrections? Is it the format that like doesn't lend itself easily to corrections, or have you had any experience with anything like that that is different from, say, like a standard Facebook video or even just a regular video not online?
I think it's harder when you're tweeting and you have to issue a correction, because we've had done that at NBC and even at ABC, and it's just like a tweet brings so much attention to this error that you made. And it's well-meaning, whether it was the tweeter or the news organization. Like, I think it's actually harder to issue a tweet correction than it is to do on Snapchat, because it's just
Corrections on Twitter are the hardest.
yeah.
Oh, but it's also, Snapchat in particular, though, is a highly produced premium product when you're in that discover or show environment, and so it requires a little bit of design work to get that correction done. That's really the lift there.
And thank you for being a public broadcaster.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm a student journalist at Penn State. First of all, thank you so much. That was great. I work for our campus newspaper, the Daily Collegian, and basically we're trying to overhaul everything. We've recently cut our daily print product down to 2 days a week from 5 days a week. And in turn, we've also added a video department, which I head. And basically, I'm working on trying to establish that, and obviously we can do the basic, multimedia storytelling, but I'm trying to figure out what more can we add. And then the second part of that question is, we are in a unique situation because we both cater to local residents of State College, which are completely different from our university students, and trying to walk that balance. How can we do that with video?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that question. I think there's sort of like two ways to kind of think about it. It's like, okay, are we doing sort of multimedia for the print stories, and that's like a type of video that's very important and very relevant. If you're writing a story about something that happened and you have audio of a 911 call, or you have sort of a clip and you want to put it in the story, then that's also really important. And then there's kind of this other element to it, which is like video first storytelling, which is like, the video itself is all the context that you need in order to consume the story. And the story is very visual, and then you would probably do that like on a video first platform like YouTube or maybe Instagram stories. And so sort of navigating that balance, I would be curious, like, where are your students, where are the students, getting their news? Do you guys have a really active, like, Twitter presence? I mean, how big is your video team?
It went from 2 to 10 in the last week.
Yeah,
Wow,
that's
that's
great.
Very new,
Amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's just sort of like, I love Ashley's advice, honestly, is sort of like pick one thing and do it well. And so kind of what your guys' thing is going to be really sort of depends on where your audience is coming from and where they go to consume their news.
I'd vote for Instagram stories.
I was going to say the same thing, yeah. Have them out there at even at like big football games, and I know that's like cliche of me to say because you're from Penn State, but I think that's an obvious success, right? It's have your sports journalists like documenting the game, doing sideline, whatever, all that like immersive stuff, in addition to like other town-related, resident-related.
And I'll just say, too, building on that, like, I had lunch with one of my college mentors, and I remember him telling me when I worked at GWTV back in the day at George Washington University, he told me, he was like, this is a sandbox. I did this stupid program where, again, I tried to replicate the news hour. I was like, why the fuck am I doing the news hour for college-age kids? Don't look to us. We should be looking at all the cool, innovative stuff that you're doing, because you're not bound by anything. You don't have to sell it. You don't have to make Snapchat happy. You don't have a standards department. You don't have a legal department. Go play. Go have fun. Reinvent what we should be doing on Instagram stories, because you've got the audience on Instagram stories, and you don't have any of the restrictions that we do. So I hope in 6 months we're looking at you and saying, hey, we should be doing what the Penn State's doing.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Starla Sampaco, and I'm a host and video producer for GeekWire. We're a tech news site. My question's for Ashley. You had mentioned that CNN made a newsroom set specifically for mobile video. Could you speak more about what that looks like and how some of us can do that on a budget?
Yeah, so basically you have to design for that vertical experience. So we made sure the backdrops and the camera setup and the chairs and the interview, the way the interview was situated, the way the lighting was framed, obviously, all of that was specifically for the dimensions for vertical. It's not, I wouldn't say it's difficult. It's just, it's a little experimenting and, moving things around to make sure that it's still highly visual but makes sense and you're not cutting off somebody's head or, really. But it's not hard. It's good. You'll see it if you pop and watch the show. You'll see just kind of how we reframed things in the back and we painted certain walls to be certain colors and. Apparently wall color, that was one of our biggest challenges in launching that show, was what color to paint the wall behind Anderson.
Thank you.
Hi there. I had a question about revenue. I was wondering what are the main ways that you're monetizing video programming on social, and at what point monetization becomes the main priority above simply getting exposure, or if there are other metrics of success that you're prioritizing over monetization during that initial test period?
I think monetization is always a priority.
Yeah.
And it's always like the priority.
And I think publishers should be really, if that's not a priority when you're thinking about off-platform, then I think it's natural to make that a priority. More platforms are obviously coming forward with those opportunities, which is very good.
And can I just say too that I think that it's, I don't know if you work with Public or what, but working with your sales team, I don't necessarily interact with our sales team a lot because there's still a pretty solid line between. But we have intermediaries whom we work with to say, sales can really sell this. Can you do this? Can you do that? What is it that your sales team can really sell? And work backwards from there. Because if, again, as journalists, we seem to think, well, we've got the answer, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do, all these videos like BuzzFeed does them. Well, if your sales team can't sell it,
right?
And there seems to be not a lot of coordination, and there shouldn't be to some extent around editorial, but to just say, hey, we got a lot of, Coca-Cola wants to advertise. It's not a bad thing, so that's why.
I would also say, though, that I keep the monetization conversations very separate from the team that's doing the actual work. And I think that's important. So I think about monetization in my role, because I run a large team, and my directors do as well, but beyond that, the journalists and the video producers and the folks that are doing the distribution of the content aren't thinking about it, which I think is good.
Okay, and what are the main ways that you're monetizing? Is it more like traditional sponsorships or?
Sponsorships through sales, ad breaks on Twitter and Facebook.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And pre-roll, yep.
Hi, my name is Nobuo Kumura. Originally journalism professor in Japan, but right now that I'm a visiting scholar at George Washington University. My question is, oh yeah?
Go Colonials.
Yes. My question is that the personality rankers or reporters and how you select them. I mean, in order to reach the young audience, that who tells the story is really important stuff. So how do you select those people? I mean that the news reporters not really look good sometimes. So how do you train people? How do you choose people to reach out to those people? And you also realize that the certain journalism discipline is really important to tell the news. How do you balance that to recruiting young people? Thank you.
I just say from our experience when we I don't want to say cast, stay tuned, but when Gotti was a natural choice because he was so active on Snapchat to begin with. He was an MSNBC correspondent. We did an internal casting call, and we found Savannah Sellers. And then we have Lauren Jackson, who joined our team a couple of months ago. They're just so natural. they don't, Gotti summed it up best when he said, when we were doing Stay Tuned, he's like, I had to unlearn everything I had to learn to get here. So like, the way that I talk on Nightly News is not the way that I talk on Stay Tuned. I think that it's gonna get easier because you're gonna have a whole generation of reporters who didn't go through local TV. And if I have one piece of advice for you fellows that are looking to go into TV, why on earth would you go to local TV? Like, start a YouTube channel, because they're gonna teach you all these bad habits that you don't, and you're gonna make, what, $18,000 a year doing it, that you're gonna have to unlearn at some point, because that's fading away. But I think it's just that you look for that natural ability of just being able to talk to people. I don't know, what about you, Nadine?
Yeah, well, sort of what we look for. Yeah, definitely. It's like somebody who, someone once told me that like you, in order to have a good host, like they need to be compelling. You want to watch them talk about anything, not just the thing that they're talking about. And that's sort of like a kind of benchmark is like, would I listen to this person talk about whatever, or talk about, you know, the thing that they don't have expertise on. And I think that's a pretty good litmus test to figure out who should actually be on camera.
Thank you.
I think that's it. 301. Okay, one more question.
I'm from India Today Group. We actually own a channel on YouTube, which is going to be touching a 10 million mark. A question to Ashley, you know, you put up a very good chart of all the bubbles. And after your own channels, it has like gone to YouTube. Would like to understand that when you put any content on your platform, do you put the content on YouTube as soon as you put it on your platform, or you delay it?
No, it's almost simultaneous actually with YouTube. We do create original content for YouTube, but with our television content, it's the publishing is almost simultaneous from when it goes onto our site and onto YouTube.
And you don't hold anything back. Whatever you produce for your channel, everything goes on.
I don't. No, I don't think so. No, but no. Sometimes we decide to not publish a video to YouTube because of length, or, you know, but not usually editorial.
But the monetization on YouTube is pretty low as compared to your own platforms.
I mean, everything can be better, right? But it's, you know, we think it's worthwhile enough to do it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for coming, you guys. Have fun.
Yes, thank you. So wait, are you part of SNPA, or where are you?
I'm with citizen association.